Hello everyone and welcome back to our final segment of the day here on the GSMC Fantasy Sports Podcast, and we're going to jump ahead and preview the last game of the Sunday slate. A bizarre Sunday night game in the AFC. The Bengals taking on the LA Chargers at SoFi Stadium. And this one really is one that I can't quite wrap my head around, because it feels like both of these teams have a point to prove, but the Bengals have already proven half of it, right? We know what this offense is capable of. This offense could hang 50 on anyone, if we're being honest. That's how they're clicking right now. Joe Burrow, like I said previously, MVP caliber play. His rapport with Chase Higgins, the entire offense for that matter, is the best it's been in his entire career. And I feel like, with all the struggles the defense has been facing, this offense is undeterred by any deficit, whether or not they are out to a big lead, because they feel they can continue to put up points for as long as you ask them to. But the reason why people might be a little bit more optimistic, and why Vegas certainly is optimistic about this Chargers team, and that's why they are apparently 2-point favorites here. The over-under is favoring them and their defense, 46.5, and they're minus 125 to win outright, is, like I said, because of that defense, the number 3 scoring defense in the entire league. However, I just want to go over the Chargers schedule here, because a lot of people, I feel like, might be a little bit in over their heads in terms of where they rank the Chargers. They are a 6-4 football team, and kudos to Jim Harbaugh for creating a certain culture there that become more physical, more smash-mouth football than we're used to from LA. But I just want to go over the teams they played and the schedule they faced thus far. Their best win this season, as I pull up their schedule, might be against the Broncos. And as much as I respect the Broncos, I feel like that's not telling me what this Chargers team really is. If your best win is against a Broncos team that's probably not going to make the playoffs as hard as they play all season long, then I feel like, against a Bengals offense that can tear you to shreds any given Sunday, you're not going to look that good. And so this game just feels bizarre in how people are shaping it up to be. This kind of defensive slugfest where the Chargers drag the Bengals into their style of play. Or, where Joe Burrow suddenly magically turns into a Daniel Jones-esque quarterback and throws 3 to 5 interceptions. That's not how this game is going to look. I feel like all these kind of offense versus defensive games have a defining moment, and sometimes, the defense most likely wins out. Because, as the saying goes, defense wins championships. But I just feel like the Chargers defense is a mirage. They have the talent. They have the players. They have the number 3 scoring defense in the league to prove it. But who have they played that proves that they are a team to be reckoned with? And not for nothing, I haven't even talked about their offense, right? Because you can drag teams into their game, right? And we've seen that in all their wins. But when you're playing teams like the Panthers, the Broncos, the Browns, the Saints, the Titans, these are all teams who do not excel against the run and also can't keep up with you if you do happen to put points on the board. Whereas the Bengals, yes, we know that the Chargers can potentially put up points, but their offense is just going to score more than you. And I feel like the Chargers haven't been in a game like that where they can be like, okay, let's just try and score as many points as possible, get in the 27 to 30 point range, and we'll be as good as gold because our defense can close it out. That's not how it's going to happen, because the Bengals offense, no matter how many points you score, whether you score 20, they're going to score 25. Whether you score 26, 27, they're going to score 35. So this is a Bengals offense that is more than capable of, bolstering their defense through their consistent play. And for what it's worth, this Bengals defense, at least on paper, isn't as terrible as we think it is. They have the players to really affect opposing offenses. It's just that I feel like, for whatever reason, their philosophies and identities don't equate to on-field success. And it is kind of problematic that we're at this point in the season, they haven't figured it out yet. And if they had, they would potentially have a winning record. But it's not necessarily like it's been to the complete detriment of this team because of what this offense is doing. Whereas the Chargers, I feel like, are too reliant on their defense shutting teams down that their offense kind of gets overshadowed. And I do like, a lot of the players on this offense. Quentin Johnston and Ladd McConkey are reliable receivers when Justin Herbert passes them the football. But when I look at the overall outlook for this game, you're going to have to, A, slow down the Bengals offense, and B, make sure your own offense can move the football effectively. And chances are, because you're a run-first unit, the Bengals can hone into that. Yes, their run defense has been atrocious all season, but they know what to expect out of you. They know that you're not going to try to hurt them in the football field, unless, of course, they're ahead. So, if the Bengals get out to an early lead like I think they will, this will not go well for the Chargers if they're just trying to play catch-up. Because as much as, Jim Harbaugh always feels like he's going to win a football game, you have to make sure that you're the team that's ahead. And the Chargers, for as methodical and efficiency-driven they are, can't necessarily keep up with an offense that, could do so much with so little in such a little amount of time. So, if you get what I'm saying, I feel like the Chargers can frustrate the Bengals by keeping Joe Burrow on the sidelines. But if Joe Burrow is going to have very efficiently short drives and put up points on the board as a result, then what's the point of, these methodical 10-11 play drives if you know that you're just going to play catch-up? So, it's going to force the Chargers' hand here on the offense side of the football. Do you give Justin Herbert the keys to the car in this game and say, pass us to victory if you can? Or do you want to play that keep Joe Burrow on the sidelines game and risk, Joe Burrow, when he does get the football, just throwing 50 to 75-yard bombs to Jamar Chase all the time? Because that's to be expected here. Let's not get it twisted. As much as I want to believe in the Chargers' defense, that's what Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase do, no matter who they play. And if you want to throw out there that perhaps the Bengals haven't played the best of schedules, then consider the fact that, they have some questionable losses. But they also have not, in their losses, been that lucky as other teams have been. They had that 1-point loss to the Chiefs. They could have won, that unfortunate fumble by Joe Burrow in that game. They had that overtime game against the Ravens before last week's game against them where they went for 2 and potentially ruined their season. But they've played competitive games against playoff caliber teams and proven that they're there and thereabouts. And this offense is more than capable of keeping them in games. It's just that, you have to hope that their defense is bad enough that you score more points in them. Kind of like what the Commanders did, right? Where the Commanders kind of stayed ahead of schedule, was actually leading for quite some time in that game, and ultimately finished it out. And then the Ravens in both their games just played them mano a mano and matched them touchdown for touchdown. So when you look at it that way, and you look at the Chargers offense, I don't see a reasonable way to justify how they can find a game plan where they're not constantly playing from behind. And it's going to say a lot about, Jim Harbaugh's style of football if the Chargers do get blown out. But I also feel like you can't necessarily get discouraged if you're the Chargers. Because let me look at their schedule yet again, because I think it does toughen up a little bit. But it is a very frustrating brand of football for opponents to play. They do play the Ravens next. They play the Falcons, Chiefs, and Bucks, all tough games. But these are all games that you can stay in. It's just that this one, I kind of feel like from the way the Bengals are playing, you can't ignore the fact that Joe Burrow and that offense will just put up points in bunches. So that's why I have to take this Bengals squad on the road giving 2 points to the Chargers. And it's stunning to say that the Chargers are favored in this game, but I can see why it's just not justified for me. So I'm taking the Bengals in this one, and we'll talk a little bit more about this game tomorrow. That will just about do it for today's edition of the GSMC Fantasy Sports Podcast, brought to you as always by the GSMC Sports Network. I've been Christopher Shepard. Thank you all for tuning in. We'll be back here tomorrow, same time as always, 3:30 p.m. Eastern. Like, follow, and subscribe to the show in the network. Continue doing what you're doing to the Super Chat, Super Things, and Super Stickers features here on YouTube. But other than that, Shepard is out. See you tomorrow.